Esoteric Order of Gamers. If you've been following the website for a while, you may have heard me mention a few times that I had a lot of games in storage. Yes, it was very frustrating when I moved over to New Zealand. I had to put most of my collection in storage in Sydney. And here it is, almost 5 years later. We finally bought a house here in New Zealand and I've got it all back! So what you see before you is my entire games collection. That is all the stuff that was in storage in Sydney, plus all the stuff I bought in New Zealand in the last 4.5 or so years. As you can see, it's huge. I've got a corridor of games. I'm surrounded by them. The exciting thing is opening the boxes that have been stored for the last 5 years and seeing what's inside. I had a list of them, but it's fantastic to rediscover old games. And, just open games like it's some kind of huge mutant Christmas. So I'm going to have you along for the ride in this sleigh of gaming joy, and we're going to open some of these games together and just revel in games old and new. That's all happening here in this very special, once-in-a-lifetime Esoteric Order of Gamers Joy of Unboxing. So here they all are from another angle, and as you can see, there's 2 rows of large boxes over there, another few rows of boxes over there. There's figures, there's more figures, there's terrain. Oh, actually, there's some terrain over there. There's the terrain collection, and it's all eventually going to be unpacked and put in shelves in my office. But for the moment, I'm just going through some of these boxes and seeing what we have in them. Because I've been collecting games for a long time. In fact, I started when I was about 12 years old. Well, it's almost 40 years ago. I can't believe I just said that, but yes, it is. And I started off collecting role-playing games. It's really only been in the last 15 years or so that I've really started to get serious about collecting games and also getting lots and lots of board games. Well, here are a few old classics. And you can see we've got Space Crusade down there, the old Milton Bradley Games Workshop collaboration, Dark World, good old Hero Quest, always got to have a copy of Hero Quest. There's a Dark World expansion called Village of Fear, and Mutant Chronicles Siege of the Citadel, which in fact has just been kickstarted for a new generation, and I've backed the new Kickstarter version. These are fantastic old classic games, and I love to collect these particular style of games which have fantastic components and are really colourful and exciting. Let's take Village of Fear, for example. This expansion for Dark World is quite rare these days, hard to get hold of, and it's a shame it's not a very impressive game because the components are spectacular. It has all these cardboard buildings, as you can see, and sometime in the past I went to all the trouble of painting the figures, which aren't too bad. They've certainly got a lot of character. And these are particularly nice. They're sort of a plastic thatched roof. I mean, you could use these for tabletop miniatures games, and I probably will. Look, there's a windmill. There's bits of a tower in there. They really just don't make games like this anymore, do they? Here's my copy of a game we all know and love. Good old Hero Quest. What a classic. Now, I've actually consolidated 2 sets of Hero Quest into this box. You can see here, there's a couple of decks of cards. These are all the pieces, the doors, and lots of furniture. I've painted up one set of the furniture, but the other set remains unpainted. There's a project for a future day. And what great components they are. Absolute classics. Yes, these were the good old days when assembly instructions came on the back of the lid. Here's another classic and a pride of my collection, Space Crusade. And here it is, chock full of components, lovely bits of plastic, spare counters, and maybe a set and a half in here, I'm not sure. But all the figures are stored elsewhere in a foam insert arrangement to take care of them. And in fact, they're all painted, as are the Hero Quest figures. And here are the 2 Space Crusade expansions, Mission Dreadnought and Eldar Attack. Here's a strange one, Legend of Zagor. I got this just before we moved, so I haven't actually had a chance to try it out or even work out what it's about. But it's got, wait for it, a 40K computer chip. Wow. Yep, high-tech stuff. And here are the components. There's some great plastic stuff. And here's our computer console with buttons and look, I don't even know what's going on here. There's another huge plastic piece, lots of counters, and what look like some. This guy's a sort of large-scale villain, and then there's some pretty decent-looking miniatures in there. It's once again cashing on the wave of success that was Hero Quest, but definitely worth a project in the future. Oh, and while I'm here, I should mention the fact that even with these games that I haven't done much with, I've given them a foam core insert liner. And I think this has also helped to preserve them in good shape, as it just gives that extra reinforcement to the box. Of course, you've seen my dust battle reports on the Esoteric Order of Gamers, and it's a game I rather enjoy. And because these figures have come for pretty reasonable prices, they've been on sale a few times, I've got a couple of bins worth. There's some here, there's some over there, and these two containers are full of them as well. Quite a bit of painting to do, some of them are unpainted, but certainly enough to get some good armies on the tabletop. One of the fun things about doing this unpacking is discovering old things I'd forgotten about, like these foam core card holders. I think I made these for Doom originally, and perhaps Arkham Horror as well, but they're quite handy to stand on the tabletop like so and put cards in. And amazingly, they've managed to survive intact. Of course, there are some games that I've actually never got around to playing, and one of them is Battlefleet Gothic. As you can see, I haven't even assembled the spaceships, which is terrible. It's definitely a project that I'm looking forward to tackling one day. It's just that there are quite a few good spaceship combat games out there on the market, and I've never got around to playing this one. These figures actually come from Space Fleet, which was the original Games Workshop space combat game. One day I'll get around to painting up the rest of these figures and giving this game a go. Now, before I left Sydney, I went to a huge amount of trouble packing all these games. This isn't how they were packed. Oh no, these ones I've just unpacked recently. They were all carefully packed with paper and bubble wrap. Every game individually wrapped in bubble wrap. And inside as well, components inside were wrapped. And I'm happy to say that because of all this effort, they've survived remarkably well. I haven't had anything damaged. You can see here with Tide of Iron that there's foam core inside the box as well as wrapping the box. It just stopped things from moving around too much as the boxes got moved around. The other fun thing about unboxing these games is the little surprises. Like, I'd completely forgotten that I actually went to all the trouble of painting the Tide of Iron figures. And I even airbrushed them, which I'd forgotten about. But this is a really good game. It'll be fantastic to get it on the table again, and it's fully painted. Wow! How did I find the time? Don't you wish they could still make games like this these days? Broadsides and boarding parties. It came with 2 huge plastic ships, pirate ships. Look at that! Amazing. You would never be able to see anyone afford to make a game like this these days. Wow, these deserve to be painted. Of course, despite all my efforts, sometimes you see the telltale signs of mould, especially on some of these older games. I immediately have to get onto that and treat it and put it out in the sun and make sure I stop that immediately. There's nothing serious, but it has popped up a couple of times. Most notably, for some strange reason, in the Descent series of games, I was getting little spots of mould on the boxes of these games, and I've used a bit of disinfectant cleaning stuff very, very carefully to clean off the mould. Luckily it was very much surface mould, and then I'm putting these out in the bright sun to kill any remaining spores. But really the only thing you can do is just monitor your games collection and make sure that everything is in good nick and that any signs of mold are eradicated as soon as they appear. Well folks, that's enough for one session of unboxing, but there's lots more to come because there are lots and lots of games to unbox. Eventually I'm going to unbox them all, put them into my office, but I have to paint that room. It's a new house, there's lots of things to do. But in the meantime, I'm just going to be going through this stuff and sharing it with you as I unbox them and just reveling in the joy of board games. What a fantastic hobby it is. We'll see you next time. Esoteric Order of Gamers, orderofgamers.com.